Testing. Alrighty then. Our last members arrived on the dot. The digital clock is turned over to 1 o'clock. I will now call this meeting to order. That means all of you. Councillor Bateman. Thank you. All right, I'll start by acknowledging that, as usual, we are doing business and trying to make improvements on the traditional unceded territories of the Sauk Nation with gratitude. And moving on to approval of the agenda. Someone like to move that? Okay. Seconded by Councillor Bateman. Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you very much. Adoption of the minutes. Moved by Member Ritz. Seconded by Coming. That's my problem there. Okay. No S. Come on. Member Coming. Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you very much. Public question and comment. At this point in time, I would like to invite any members of the public to come forward. I believe we have 2 minutes. Please confirm. 2 minutes confirmed. Thank you very much. As soon as you sit down and are ready to speak, the timer will start. And please, we welcome.
Or you need to get it up on my screen. Does everybody else have an opportunity to get it up?
No internet.
I have no trouble getting it up.
Oh, okay.
Yes, Chair, we do apologize. The IT staff are working on the matter. The publicly available Wi-Fi is currently not working. So although some Wi-Fi is available, so I think the staff network is up, but the publicly available Wi-Fi network is not. We are broadcasting this meeting because that computer is hard cabled, but we don't have video because the cameras are on the network. It's all a little convoluted right now. So if anyone's trying to access their agendas on their computers over the public Wi-Fi, I'm afraid it probably won't be working for you right now. If you'd like, then we can run off paper copies for that reason.
Okay, so agenda notes. Looks like it might work on notes. It's working on notes.
Doesn't have all the attachments. I guess we'll have them on the screen. Is that correct? Yeah.
If I may ask, have you tried agenda notes or is that not working as well? Okay, so that's not working too.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Please, name and local government where you reside. That's all we need. And I think you need to turn the mic on. Just there we go.
There we go.
Perfect.
John Broman, 2105 Furwood. I happened to look at your agenda today, and on your list of active applicants, I'm not on the list. So that's partially why I come here. See if I'm through my subdivision, or I've got an active subdivision, or I thought I did. But I didn't see it on the list, so I thought I'd come and, so if you guys can find out where I'm at on the list, or if I am, or if I'm not, and just bring it to your attention. And the other thing there at 2105 and 7090 Grant Road, I'm in a development permit area, and I just noticed yesterday the creek. I'm a little worried. I'm waiting to be able to work on my sewer, and I've told the staff that we want to get through this in the dry weather, not the wet weather. So I happened to find out there yesterday, I'm looking in the creek, and it's full of debris. It's construction debris. I would take it, sand, all kinds of stuff. A little bit worried about it. Like, you know, we've owned that property for 60 some years, and we never put a drop of anything in there. It's just been Mother Nature, blackberries and stuff. Now I see a whole bunch of construction debris right in the creek. It's going to block the creek and flood it. And we're in a floodplain zone. So I'm a little worried about it. I thought I'd bring it to your attention. I've talked to my engineer just this morning, and he said, good plan, bring it up. So, you know, the look ain't coming my way. Where'd this stuff come from? And find out what's going on. So that's what I'm here for. if there's a chance that I could meet with engineer from the staff at the property site this week. Next week, I'm heading back up north again. But if we could have a look at it, I just want to attention. And if I'm going to be working in there or right in that area in the next couple of months, I want it recognized through SUG to see what was going on, where this stuff come from, and who put it there.
Okay. So just to clarify and to make sure that I've got this down, you're looking at information, or you're trying to find information on an ongoing file that you don't see in the list of ongoing files. And you're also wanting staff. No, I don't see it necessarily, but what I'm saying is you didn't see it up there, and you want to find out what the status of your file is and if it's an ongoing file. And you're also concerned because you found some construction debris in a stream that runs through your property, and you just below you. Okay.
Where along the ditch on the side of Fernwood, it's right at the bottom of Fernwood. And there's a bunch of debris there. It's pretty well blocked. It will block the
Okay.
creek when the, when the water comes. The last time when I ran the sewer, it was there.
Mike's on.
We were just.
Excuse me, Chair. I just wanted to advise the current thing being discussed isn't actually on the agenda for this committee's meeting
right.
today. And I think as staff, we would suggest that the items would be better resolved as a call to service. So we either we have access options on our website where you can request to talk to staff about these, or you can make an appointment at the front counter. Those would be more productive because the committee can't really address issues that aren't on the agenda and which they have no background about.
I'm asking the committee, basically, out of this to send your engineers or whatever, just to have a look, notify, take pictures. And just so it's on the record,
Okay.
through
I
here, basically.
think what's being also suggested is that in addition to having done what you've done, which is let the committee know, and that's good. You should also go to the website for a call to service and go to the front counter and let them know as well. And by doing all of these things, you'll have the best chance of a resolution.
Yeah, well, it's not on my property. I talked to my
No,
engineer.
and that's fine. And
And-
I do think that at this point, the first item, which actually is part of the agenda, we'll see about getting an answer on that. But meanwhile, 2 minutes are up and we might have other people needing to speak. So
Yeah,
thank you.
sounds good. Thank you.
And Dewey.
Hi
Anyone?
there. I'm not sure if you can hear me. My name is Shannon Webb. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes. Shannon Webb, my municipality is Strathcona Regional District. I'm actually here representing one of the applications, the non-farm use on Francis Road. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to speak up after staff give a little presentation and introduction, if that's the normal process. I'll sort of wait my turn. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't sort of missed because I just did want to give a little bit of background from my perspective on that application. So if somebody can please sort of give me direction on when I should be talking, that would be great.
Thank you very much. I'll find out from staff right now.
Thank you. I could also leave this to our planning staff, but yes, the applicant is scheduled to be speaking later in the meeting, and that's why they're available on the call. So yeah.
Okay, so chance to speak later at the meeting when your item comes up. So just hang on and thank you very much for asking. Okay, so other than Mr. Webb, do we have someone else who'd like to speak and offer their thoughts on any item in the agenda? Okay, going once, twice, gone. Thank you so much. Okay, so we'll move on now to reports and item 6.1, current planning file summary and status update.
Yeah, so through the chair, this is a standing item and staff are available for questions regarding that attachment 6.1. And just to address the gentleman's comments earlier, I just wanted to be clear that the files that are noted on that file summary sheet are planning applications and they do not include subdivision files.
Ah, okay. So the answer, Mr. Broman, would be that they're planning and not subdivision files. What's the difference?
Subdivision files subdivide land. Planning files include development variance permits, rezonings, development permits, temporary use permits, agricultural applications. Basically everything but building permits or subdivision.
Okay, and subdivision would be under the approving officer and not the planning department, is that correct?
It'd be our operations department and subdivision division.
There we go. Okay, thank you very much. So, yes, please.
Yeah, thank you for this. It's continuing to improve, more readable this time. I believe the chair at the last meeting requested that applications proceeding under delegated authority also be included in the update for the benefit of the committee and the public. And I don't see them at this point. And do we have to keep asking, or are we going to get a definitive no at this point?
Through the chair, so they have been included on the report. If you look at the notes in parentheses, it's noted delegated where they are delegated.
Yep, sure is. Okay,
I
so
don't see that.
looking at item, for example, Nagel Road, development permit, environmental DP delegated. Just a little later on, 6520 Souk Road, it's
Got it.
in the fourth column.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions on item 6.1? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item 6.2, 7295 Francis Road, ALC non-farm use application. Mr. McTraffic.
Thank you, Chair. Great. So I'll just give a presentation to introduce this item. And then, as you heard, we have a consultant online who wishes to present, and also a few representatives in person who will say some words to introduce the file from their perspective as well once I've given my introduction. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this application is at 7295 Francis Road, as you've noted, and it's an Agricultural Land Commission application for non-farm use on that property. The application is the proposal is to allow a day-use thermal spa at the property in conjunction with a proposed bamboo farm. And council must decide whether to authorize the application to proceed to the ALC or not. I'll just give a bit of site context here. It's 7295 Francis Road. The property is approximately 2.1 hectares in area. It is within the Agricultural Land Reserve and designated for agriculture within the official community plan. The zoning is RU3, small scale agriculture. The property is not currently farm classified by BC Assessments, meaning that it's not currently being put to any agricultural use. This next slide just shows the official community plan designation of the subject property and some of the surrounding properties. It's the subject property is highlighted in blue. It's designated for agriculture, as I mentioned. We also have rural residential properties in tan and some community residential up in the northeast there. And this slide just shows the extent of the agricultural land reserve in the immediate vicinity, shaded in green. So the applicants will likely speak to this in greater detail, but just a few words about the proposed use of the property. We understand they propose to have a bamboo farm of approximately 1.54 hectares on site, and the application for non-farm use is for the thermal spa, which would be approximately 0.56 hectares of the site. The spa components include cold plunge pools, hot pools, saunas, lounge and deck areas, as well as parking and reception, treatment rooms, and storage. Significantly, the proposal is for day use only. There's no proposed overnight accommodation. And now just a few words about the process with an ALC application. It's not an application that has been made to SOOC as such, but it's an Agricultural Land Commission application, which SOOC is being asked to weigh in on. So council has the option to authorize the application to proceed to the ALC with comments and a recommendation of either support or non-support. And council also has the option of declining to forward the application to the ALC, in effect refusing it. There was a previous ALC non-farm use application for this property. In April of 2025, SOOC council forwarded the application to the ALC. The proposal was to create a group daycare of 100 children. And October 30th of 2025, the ALC issued a decision to deny the application, noting in part that the priority of the commission is the use of ALR land for farm use. And that was a different applicant, but the same property. So a few words about the Souk policy context. The OCP supports farming and agritourism in the agriculturally designated lands, but it does not support general non-agriculturally based tourism. The current proposal is not considered to be agritourism as such. The OCP policies focus on protecting agricultural lands, supporting agricultural production, and supporting agritourism within lands designated for agriculture. The application materials acknowledge that this spot is not considered agritourism. And notably, if agritourism uses are protected within the ALR, and a local government cannot prevent them from happening if they're considered to be agritourism uses in the ALC's definitions. Oh, I was getting ahead of myself. That's what this slide says. So agritourism is designated by the ALC as a farm use which may not be prohibited by a local government. But this list that you see here is a fairly narrow one of what the ALC actually considers to be agritourism. Heritage exhibits, farm tours, sleigh rides, dog trials, corn mazes, etc. And what is at issue with this application is not whether the proposed spot is secondary or ancillary to the proposed farm use of a bamboo farm, which is of course permitted and supported, but rather the question is whether the non-farm use is supportable within farmland in the ALR. So the staff interpretation of that context, of the policy context, is that the introduction of a bamboo farm is of course supportable within the agricultural land reserve on an agriculturally zoned property and land designated for agriculture in the OCP. The spa use itself is characterized as a commercial or wellness tourism use, and again, does not fit within the definition of agritourism adopted by the Agricultural Land Commission. So staff do not consider the proposed non-farm use to be consistent with the OCP's agricultural designation, which has supported uses in the OCP basically limited to agriculture and residential uses. So therefore, staff find that the application is not supportable in its current form. The applicants included a business plan with the application, which is included with the appendixes to the staff report, which the committee has received. Staff received referral comments from internal departments and external agencies, and these are just a few of the more significant points. The building department advised that existing structures on the site were built without the benefit of building permits or inspections. And so if this use or another similar use were to proceed, then building permits would need to be obtained prior to the operations commencing. The Sauk First Nation identified, as they do in many coastal sites, that there is a high archaeological potential, and so they would request presence on site during any site altering activities that resulted from this application. The archaeology branch similarly identified archaeological potential, and the Parks Department requested that particular attention be paid to containing the bamboo plants on site. And I note that the applicants have expertise and experience in growing bamboo and have assured us that that's not going to be an issue here, which is great. So just lastly, a few words about the process and next steps. The recommendation from the LEDC today will be presented to council, and with a decision to either forward to the LC with supportive or non-supportive recommendation, or again, a decision to decline to forward the application could be reached. If the ALC approves the application, then staff have notified the applicants that a rezoning of the site would be required because the proposed use is not permitted within the existing RU3 zone. And similarly, the agricultural designation of the property would need to be amended through an OCP amendments application to facilitate that rezoning. And again, as mentioned earlier, building permits would be required for the structures on site. So there's a motion that is recommended within the report, but of course the committee is free to come up with their own alternate motion, and that is the end. Now, again, the applicants are here and wish to say some words in person, and also there's the consultant online who wishes to say some words as well.
Okay,
Thank
so my question right now for the committee is, I have questions for staff on the report. Do people want to ask questions of staff on the report, or do we want to hear from the applicants first? Just give me an idea here. Applicants first? Yes? Okay. No, just wanted to make sure we're all of a mind. I get to decide, but all of a mind would be nice. All right. So if the applicant would care to step up, please, and thank you.
Good day, everybody. My name is Cynthia Smith, and I'm here today to introduce our project as well as clarify a few of the concerns and enhance with more information as well. So about myself quickly before I turn it over to Shannon. I've served my country for 28 and a half years. I just retired from the Navy, and now I want to serve the community. So in 2002, I had my very first posting here to the West Coast. And I met my biological father's family for the first time. And my uncle, Steve Vaughn, owns Victoria Bamboo. He's a horticulturalist, and he needs more land. He has the property in Saanich. And right now he's in his 70s. He's turned a lot of the day-to-day operations over to my cousin, Emily. And the problem being, as I said, it's a very small business. So I want to help because he's taken on that active fatherly role to me over those years. And I want to give back, not just to my family, but to the community. So with bamboo, you'll see in your packet that we provided, like it actually helps preserve the soil, stops erosion. There's a lot of benefits to bamboo. So at first, we did not put it in as an agro-tourism application because my uncle and my cousin were very busy. Like it's a big business for two people. But since our application in February, family friends have come forward. Their daughters actually work for nurseries in the area. So they actually want to provide that information to the community now. They want to be heavily involved and actually spread the knowledge of why bamboo is such a good product. So we also want to work with local businesses here in Sooke. We have a lot of connections here in this community, so we have an affinity for Sooke itself. So our primary objective is the bamboo. I know when during our visit in May, I was with the Tsuut'ina First Nations, and then Kyle was with the other group. So we had a really good conversation with Tsuut'ina First Nations, talking about land preservation and about the bamboo. And then the other, I don't know what they were chatting about, but I know that we had a really good conversation, and this is what our objective was. I do want to clarify that the main building is not to be used for any services. This is not a traditional spa. That's an ancillary use. The reason why I want to have a small spa, which is not, I don't even like to use that word, it's a thermal cycle, is to help veterans and first responders with PTSD. So I want to bring that to the nation, like out to this near the Tsuut'ina Nation as well, because we had a really good conversation about that. Again, it's an ancillary use. The cost that you saw up there, a lot of that cost was actually land preparation. Right now, the land's very overgrown. We don't want to just demolish everything. We want to have a light touch to the earth, and we want to actually work with the Tsuut'ina Nation, preserve some, but while planting this bamboo. And we want to make sure that people can forest bathe. There's a lot of benefits to that as well for people with PTSD. Most of us do not come out unscathed from the forces with that. So that was a secondary. It's not the primary. The primary is to support the community with the bamboo. Secondary is the spa. The cost, like I said, going back to that, it was actually land preparation. So we have to have proper drainage, proper irrigation. And even though right now the landlord is using it as an Airbnb, the overflow with the sewage has to be replaced as well. So we're going to take on that role of replacing all of that. So that's where that cost comes in. The only thing that we really have to do with the spas is bring in one cold pool and 2 hot pools, and we have a steam room and a sauna. That's it. Very small. Everything else is bamboo. So I'm going to turn it over now to Shannon, and I'll let him provide any in-depth information that you may need. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Webb.
Thank you. So again, my name is Shannon Webb. I am the consultant assisting my clients on this project. Apologies for not being able to be there in person. Yeah, so I was just going to start by, I'm not sure if everybody's aware of the background of the Agricultural Land Reserve. We'll be very quick, but basically back in 1972, the provincial government realized there was a critical need to preserve and protect the Agricultural Land Reserve. And it was basically the Agricultural Reserve was created not by ground truthing, but looking at a series of different maps and flying over areas. And the mapping of the reserve was created by a best fit, or sort of these areas make sense, these areas don't make sense. And my reason for bringing that up is in our business, we work with a lot of property owners that are in the Agricultural Land Reserve, but in reality, it sometimes doesn't make too much sense for it to be in the reserve. And the property that we're talking about today, it's kind of like, it's borderline whether it should have ever been in the reserve or not. If you know the area well, on one side is just residential homes. On the other side are larger lots, but you can clearly see, given the vegetation and the homesteads on them, they've never been farmed. The subject property that we're talking about, we did a deep dive into the historical uses, and we could see that it was never farmed either. And typically when you see this, there's a reason for it. It's either the soil's not too good for a lot of types of crops, or the location being surrounded by residential uses. It doesn't make too much sense. From our perspective, we actually see a lot of conflict when you have intensive farming. Say cows are brought in with manure kits and they're immediately adjacent to homes like it would be in this instance. It's not a good fit. You'd actually, as councillors, you probably receive phone calls every day about the smell and the noise and so on. So in this instance, yes, it is in the Agricultural Land Reserve, but it's not necessarily suited for generic farming activities. And I'm really proud to be representing my clients in this instance, because they're trying to do the right thing and they're presenting something that makes a lot of sense on a tricky, smaller farm location in a residential area. Their land use is going to be really sympathetic with the neighbors. You're not going to have any smells, odors. You're not going to have any trucks coming in, going up and down the residential streets. It's going to be such a great fit. And now I know that staff are concerned that from their perspective, due to the finances, they feel that the land use, the commercial land use, is going to outweigh the farming. But from our experience working with the Agricultural Land Reserve and planning legislation, that's just not the case. For example, the Agricultural Land Commission, they very, very rarely consider the finances. They just simply look at the proportions. So in this instance, over 70% of the property is going to be used as the primary farming, and only 30% is going to be used for that spar. And on these smaller properties such as this, it does make sense to look at alternate options to support farming. Typically, the bigger the farm, the easier it is to have a variety of successful farming operations. The smaller and more isolated, you got to think outside of the box to have a viable farming operation. And that's exactly what my clients are trying to do. They're trying to have a viable farm while realizing that a lot of the typical farming operations wouldn't work in this location or wouldn't be an appropriate land use. So the bamboo, it's a fantastic approach. And what I really like about what the clients are trying to do is they're not using or proposing any new infrastructure that conflicts with the farming operation. They're going to use the existing buildings. The spar infrastructure is going to be temporary. It's just going to be placed on top of the soil. There's nothing permanent, no concrete foundations being poured, anything like that. So if this operation ceases, it can easily be removed from the land and the property can be used for the next farming operation. Yeah, that's about it. So our request is, unfortunately, staff aren't on the same page as us, but our request is please see beyond that. And we'd really like to be able to go to council and the Agricultural Land Commission with your support and a recommendation for approval, because we really do think this is a great fit. And like I said, as far as we can tell, I don't think this property has ever been used for farming. And so my clients are actually really trying to do a good thing here. They're trying to clean it up, get the drainage working, remove the weeds, and farm it. It'll be the first time ever that this property has been farmed. So it really seems like a good fit. And I will stick around for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Okay, I think we have approached question time. Yes? Okay, who would like to start? Council Meadows.
Yeah, this is a question for the consultant. I have a few actually, but who owns the property?
Her name is Suzu. She owns the property, sir.
Okay, so you'd just be leasing the property off her?
Yes, we have,
Um,
yes, right.
Those two buildings, because I've been involved in this about 6, 7 years ago. The smaller building is built as a barn. And now I see it's operating as an Airbnb without a license, no doubt. And the other that's marked barn is actually a riding arena. So I would like to hear whoever answers the question, what's your use of these two buildings, which are non-conforming right now?
So our intent, sir, is to actually bring those buildings up to code with the owner. So that's our first objective. The small building that used to be a barn does currently have walls up and is operating as an Airbnb. We plan on bringing it up to code, using it only as a reception area. There are no treatments. We are not a traditional spa. This is just a reception area to bring people into the bamboo facility as well as into the thermal cycle. And then the big barn, we are going to use that just for parking. Just to keep the eyesore of parking out of the community. We're going to utilize that for just that purpose.
Is there anybody going to be living in on this site?
No, sir.
Okay, there's no sort of cost estimate what you need to bring those buildings up because I know they were built as a barn. And there's some concerns when they were hauling drywall in there, so that is a concern of mine but it's not. I guess I have no trouble with the bamboo stuff. I just have a great deal of trouble with what else you're doing.
The legacy issues, yes, sir.
Yeah. I guess I'll let that go at the moment. Let other members ask questions and possibly come back. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Council Meadows. Next.
Well,
Councilor Bacon.
okay.
Knew you had questions.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm sorry I didn't have a chance to read your submission today, so it will be going to council, so hopefully we can get this into the agenda in the consent agenda, possibly somehow, so council can consider it. Through you to staff, so if this does go ahead and the ALC approves it as a non-farm use, the applicant must apply, the owner must apply for and obtain a rezoning. Would that be a C1 zone required, or how would that work?
Thank you through the chair. I think it would be most appropriately handled as a site-specific text amendment to the existing zone. Sorry. I think it would be most appropriately handled as a site-specific text amendment to the current zone, which is RU3. And we just add a line at the end saying, by the way, at 7295, in addition to the other permitted uses, you can also have a thermal spa. Yes.
To the applicants now. It's going to have limited hours.
Sorry, microphone, please.
Would those limited hours be?
We're looking for 9 to 10, sir.
9 to 10:30 at night.
No, 9 to 10 at night, not 10:30, please.
9 to, okay.
Yes, sir.
9 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Yes, please.
And at any given time, how many people will be using that?
We're looking for just 30 a day, sir.
30.
Yeah, 30.
Yeah. Okay. All right. My friend asked me, hearing about this, will you be using commercial pesticides on your bamboo?
No, sir. My uncle is very much about all organic aspects of things. So he actually created a product, and this has been used in municipalities. He has that steam backpack that was his invention. So he's quite the entrepreneur himself. So that's what we're going to be using. He does not use pesticides whatsoever, sir.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Let's see, what else have I got here? You will be using non-invasive clumping bamboo species, so there won't be any spread of this. Yes, okay, and with necessary below grade barriers. Is it very water intensive?
We will have an irrigation system installed. It's not overly intensive. So my uncle, like his right now is, he has, his water use is not that, not intensive at all.
Okay.
It's a very resistant, very, very hardy type of plant.
Okay, thank you. I did look up part 3 of the ALR use regulation under permitted non-farm uses. And I don't see anything here that lines up. Passive recreation doesn't qualify. Aha.
Yeah. So I did mention, like, since our application in February, we do have employees lined up to actually provide that educational aspect.
Yes, that's right. So that
So,
would be. a
Yeah,
piece.
I guess I could ask the staff this offline, but one of the questions I will have after is how do we then shift that application to go to agritourism? Because that would be part of it. We didn't have that option in February because my cousin and my uncle were not available. But now Rochelle is the very first one that will be doing
Yeah.
that for us, so.
Okay.
Okay, so if I may, just to
Yes.
clarify, so this would be falling under the, I believe, the second bullet, which was farm tours, education, and that type of thing. Is that correct?
You are correct, sir.
And you would be redoing the application with this new information.
Whatever whatever the best way forward would be.
But that's what's being suggested. at this
Yes,
point.
yes,
Okay,
please.
Just to clarify, thank you.
Okay, so
Okay.
that would be a farm use. However, the spa component is the tricky part. Have you analyzed ALC decisions over the last number of years for things similar to this?
I'll turn that over to Shannon because he has, sir. So, Shannon, are you still with us?
Yes, no problem. Just going back a step, there is a section in the agricultural land regulations that talks about what is or is not permitted non-farm use. And so basically that's a different category. So it's basically the way the legislation works is you're either doing full farming or there's a limited list of activities that aren't farming but are allowed outright, or there's a third option. If we were looking at non-farm activities that were permitted outright, we wouldn't actually be having this conversation because it wouldn't trigger a non-farm use application. So we're talking about activities that are non-farming that don't fall under their outright permitted land uses. Does that make sense?
That's enough. Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, the way in my business, we deal with a lot of these types of applications, and there's not too many exact examples I can give you, but there's lots of examples where we've got restaurants or portions of farms being used for golf courses or clubhouses, that sort of thing. And the mandate by the Agricultural Land Commission is always to make sure that the property is primarily used for farming. You cannot come up with a non-farm use application where it's primarily going to be commercial and a little bit of farming. The key thing here is, and this is where we differ with staff's opinion, is the ALC look at proportions of the land being used. They don't look at finances. They realize that farming sometimes can and may not be that financially positive, and you go through some seasons where sometimes farmers only make a little bit and then their income explodes. They never look at that. They always just look at big picture long term. And so, okay, this non-farm activity might be bringing in more revenue or equal to the farm, but it's not about that. It's about how much of the property are you using and maintaining for farming activities.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. I think Mr. McStravick had something to say earlier. No?
Yeah, thank
It's
you.
covered? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So as I see, the Section 6 of the Agricultural Land Commission Act does state the ALC must prioritize the preservation of agricultural land and encourage farming. That is the key mandate. Okay, that's all.
Thank you very much. I would point out that I've actually met with representatives and with the ALC a few times, more than a few times, and with the Minister of Agriculture around similar topics. And certainly they're looking actually for new innovative models in order to actually make better use of smaller parcels of ALR land. They recognize that many of those parcels are not actually being farmed because it's very challenging to make it commercially viable. So out of the box thinking is something they would probably welcome in order to look it over, at least, is my understanding. I'm just going to throw that out because they understand that there's a problem here. Historically in Sooke, most parcels that were, say, under 20 acres basically had maybe one cash crop. And for the most part, the income was diversified through fishing, forestry, mining, or some other significant activity on the farm itself. If we had to actually produce food, if the pioneers back then who had farms had tried to operate under the existing legislation, we would have all starved. And farmers would not have been able to farm because it just doesn't work. As such, I believe the ALC recognizes that there's some tweaking needing to be happening, and we'll see where that goes. But just thought I'd mention that. Further questions? Councilor Pearson.
Yes, thank you. And I guess this is through to staff and to Mr. Webb. So ALC, are we still using the land classification under the British Columbia agricultural land? I've just Googled it. It looks like basically it talks about the different classifications from 1 to 7. And do we know what this is?
You mean the soil classification?
Yeah, soil classification.
Yes,
Basically, whether it's suitable for intense agriculture.
Mhm. Yes, the soil classification system still is in use. I don't know what the classification is for this land. The Agricultural Land Commission also considers many non-soil based forms of agriculture. The applicant mentioned cattle uses earlier. There's also many greenhouse uses, which the ALC is very happy to see farm parcels put to. So it's not the only consideration in whether or not a property can be farmed, but it is still used.
Yeah, I'm familiar with this area. Where it says bamboo on this picture, that big sort of looks like a field behind there, that was taken out of the ALC a number of years ago due to the classification. It was like unsuitable for, so. Okay, you talked about parking. You had about 30 people. How many cars could you park if?
There's.
Yeah, that's a pretty big barn.
That is a very big barn. You could probably go up to at least 80, sir.
Okay,
And I think more, but at least 80.
so there wouldn't be any on-street parking.
No, we don't want anybody
Okay.
disturbing the local, the
Well,
locals at all.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
no, it's always a question whenever
Yeah.
we're
Yes.
talking about land uses in suit, because
Mhm.
parking is an issue. Okay. Can you go back one slide, staff, please? Yeah, no, one more ahead, sorry. Oh, yeah, that one. Okay. So the ALC is all the light green on this map, correct?
That's correct.
And then the subject property is a little bit darker gray. Okay, and it ranges from small lot residential. What is the zoning, predominant zoning in that area? I didn't see a zoning map actually. Is this all RU3?
One moment, please. I'm
Or
just gonna pull it up.
RU4?
Sorry, just one moment.
It's okay.
Yeah, I can respond to that. Sorry, this internet service is down, so we don't
Yeah.
have that.
Yeah,
available.
noticing. I got
Um,
it. Use a tricky way to get it.
Yeah, so those agricultural properties are RU3 and then surrounding is RU4.
Okay, so anything that's residential would be RU4, like if I look at the white along Wright Road, that would be small lot residential, or I don't know what that is. It's non-sewer specified area, right?
Yeah, that is my understanding, correct.
Okay, so drain fields, Bethany Place, that's all a common drain field. So there's no sewer specified area, even though we're fairly close to IR number 2, right? Which is,
Yeah, so the entirety of Whiff and Spit is not within the SSA,
yeah,
so no sewer in this area.
okay. But across the road in IR2, there's sewer there, right? So, okay. Thank you. No, I don't have any more questions. I don't think. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Member Barry, and then Member Ince. Just a little faster, okay? They will.
Thank you. To the chair, mostly the staff, I believe. Even though the application sounds honorable and it sounds like a very positive thing to do, what happened, because you're just leasing the property, the owner is the one who actually gets the application through, and they are the one that have successfully changed the zoning. So if the lease goes up and that owner decides to do something else, how are we tracking that? How is that going to follow through legally?
Thank you through the chair, and the question is very well put. You know, it's a little bit speculative because we do not have an application for rezoning before us. But if we were considering a rezoning, it would be very easily achievable to write the zoning bylaw in such a way that, you know, said something to the effect that a health spa is permitted on this property only while there's agriculture occurring at the same time, or if they maintain BC assessment farm status classification, et cetera. We can attach conditions that way through the zoning bylaw. There could also be another means, could be a covenant placed on the property. There's several ways that could be achieved.
Yeah, just to add, it's not really a question of ownership or leasehold. It's the permitted uses that exist on the property. So an owner will always have to be the one applying or giving agency to someone to apply on their behalf. But once the zoning is established and any associated conditions through covenant, such as what Mr. Vikstravik noted, those would stay with the land.
Thank you. Member Ritz.
That was a good question.
Yeah, it was interesting reading this because I don't recall in our land use having to weigh in on the economics of a project. I've often thought it, but we've never been asked that. So it was interesting that, and I kind of wondered, well, if it had been turned around and the farming end made a lot more money and the spa didn't, would that have changed what was put before us? But it seems that it is 70% farming and 30% what I think is kind of an interesting creative use. The OCP definitely does support tourism, and I realize this is ALR and all that. So if we followed staff recommendation today, the project would just end, it's dead. Whereas if we support it and it goes to the ALC, it's up to them. It may still be dead, but at least we've given it. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. And if I may, about the financials, it might have been a mistake to discuss that in the report because I feel that it's become a bit of a distraction almost. It's not really the crux here about, you know, how profitable is some aspect or not. It's more about, is the land use that's being proposed appropriate for the land, regardless of the proportion.
Thank you for that clarification. Councilor Beddoes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is to staff. In the past, when we've had these before us, and we've had a number of them, we've had the option of just outright refusing. And I know that things have changed in the last 2 years. And of course, then it goes no further. But we also have the option of sending it to the Agricultural Land Commission with a recommendation, or we could just send it through to the Land Commission with no recommendation. Is that correct?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct.
Okay, so just, I don't know if we're at the time for motivation now or not, but
Not as of yet. We don't have a motion.
okay, I want to make a motion.
I'd like to ask some questions first
Okay,
myself.
I'll
but-
wait.
And I think
Okay.
Member Cummings.
All right.
Dad. You're next.
Yeah, I think it's a super interesting project. Since it is a lease, I have a question. At this point, do you know about how long the lease is?
Yes, our first initial lease is 5 years. Then we have an option to extend another 5 and then another 5. We also have built in our proposal for lease to possibly buy the land. So we are still working through those figures with the landowner, but that's what we're looking at. We really want to embed ourselves in this community.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so everyone's had a chance. I'm going to go ahead. Oh. All right.
If we go to the slide forward, which shows kind of a aerial forested, there's some, yeah, right here. Towards the ocean, it shows trees. Will those trees are they of our value, or are they
They,
kept?
most of them will be kept. We are working with the Tasuke First Nations on that as well. So we do want to preserve a lot of kind of what is around that waterfront. And we're building back from it with the bamboo as well. Even though the bamboo does help with erosion and stuff, we just kind of want to have some of that natural view still there for folks to enjoy from even just down below the property as well. So it's going to be a combination. We're going to work really closely with them because there are certain plants there that they are concerned about.
Thank you. Okay, so my question for staff is, as I think was previously mentioned, if this was an allowable use under the existing provisions according to the ALC, then this wouldn't have even come forward. It wouldn't be dealt by staff. The application would simply go forward to, actually, would the application go forward even to the ALC? It would just be.
There would just be no application. The application is to the ALC for permission to do a non-farm use because what is proposed is not a farm use. If it was a farm use as a permitted, agritourism, then there would just be no need for any kind of application.
Okay.
It would be straight to building permit.
So if we were looking at farm tours and education on the benefits of bamboo for carbon sequestration and the benefits of forest bathing and all the rest of this stuff, then all of this would be unnecessary. Is that correct?
That's not quite correct. What you're now adding permitted uses on top of the core, which is still not permitted, right? If
Okay, hold
they
on.
added farm tours on top of the spa itself is still not permitted.
Okay, so the spa use itself as a non-permitted use is actually the crux in some ways, because even with the farm tours and the education, that particular piece is still not permitted.
That's right. I mean, if they just wanted to do a bamboo farm, it was organic and not organic, whatever, they wouldn't have to talk to any of us about it. Farming is permitted straight up. On top of farming, you can do a farm tour. On top of farming, you can have, agri-tours and things which are based on your farm. But it's just this separate use of wanting to have a tourist commercial spa.
As soon as you start soaking in the tub
Yeah.
and not just talking about it.
Then that's why we have this application.
So I just want to make it super clear. Thank you very much.
I just want to ask you a question. Am I allowed to ask, Kyle? So with what we read there.
Through the chair, but
Yes, through the chairman. Sorry, sir. So the question that I have is when I read the report yesterday, when we got it, it had stated that our primary use was the spa and the secondary use was the bamboo, but that's not true. It's opposite. So if the primary use is the bamboo and the secondary, the ancillary use is a spa, I just wondering why it was worded that way, that the primary use was the spa. It's not.
okay. So that's something that could probably be adjusted in a report that might go forward to the ALC. Having said that, I think the ALC mostly looks at simply the square footage and what are the proportions.
Yeah.
So what's actually designated as primary is irrelevant if the secondary is using 70%, because that's what they'll be looking at.
And the only reason why we have I hate using the word spa, it's a thermal cycle, is to help because the first 4 years is building propagation of the bamboo. So we need income. So that's where we were looking at that, sir.
Okay, so I just want to keep on working on this line because I want to figure out what is actually needed here. So even if the proponents actually make adjustments to their application and include stronger wording in terms of the now possible educational and farm tool components, we still have a use that is not permitted. And as such, we would still need, I believe, an OCP amendment, correct? Okay. What would that OCP amendment look like? What sort of amendment are we looking at?
Yeah, so those details would be refined at a later time, but it would be some form of land use that would permit commercial as a primary use.
Specifically commercial as opposed to tourism or wellness?
Well, sorry, a land use that would be suitable to permit a spa.
A spa.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that is not
Whatever
that is
looks
not
like.
agriculture.
Okay, because commercial sounds pretty broad and vague.
Yeah.
As
So
opposed
we have community residential land use designation, which I believe would be the only one that would be suitable here because we have defined boundaries for town center core, town center waterfront, as well as transitional residential areas, which I don't think this would be suitable for either. There's other options, but just to keep that simple, basically a land use designation that would support this type of commercial activity.
Thank you. Okay. I have a question for the proponent. What is a thermal cycle?
Okay, so you do hot, cold rest cycle. So there's been many studies on it to help with,
No, I-
so that's essentially it. So you
Yeah,
go.
got it.
Yeah, okay, thank
Sorry,
you.
there's something more to it than that, but okay.
No, simple.
Right. I was curious also, proponent, you were mentioning earlier that a lot of the money that was set for the spa portion was actually in terms of what looked to me or sounded to me like land remediation, irrigation, and
Sewage.
elements that would also be necessary for the bamboo. Am I wrong?
You hit the nail on the head, sir. That's correct.
Okay, because regardless of, the fact that I don't think the LC will be looking at this at all in terms of, what they care about.
Mhm.
In terms of what seems to reflect the reality, it seems like the remediation that's required for the bamboo in the agricultural portion should be placed there,
Yes, sir.
in whatever goes forward. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
I think, any further questions? Councilor Beddoes?
Well, I was just gonna make a motion and.
Okay, please.
Okay, what I see here is basically, we're talking about all these other things which really don't matter. It is okay to farm bamboo. It's just that, is it the spa a permitted use? And the only one that can answer that is the Agricultural Land Commission. That is their decision, not ours. So my recommendation is that we forward this to the ALC with no recommendation. And it's for them, then the applicant can talk to the ALC and make their case. And they're the ones that are ultimately going to decide. I don't think it's going to matter a whole lot if we give a recommendation for or against or anything, but let's get it in front of the people that can make the decision. The proponent has, they've made a reasonable presentation. So I would like to make a motion that we send it to the Agricultural Land Commission with no recommendation, but they will get to decide. It's their decision, not ours.
Okay, so we have that motion in front of us. Do we have a seconder? Oh, no, actually, I think we do. I believe we do. Do you have a seconder?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, so for discussion, it looks like there were some other thoughts, so.
Yeah, I think I basically motivated. I think it's their question. It's their use that they have to clarify, not ours. And once we have that, we could go on and
Okay.
change our rules.
The seconder
Oh,
goes,
apologies if I'm talking out of turn here. Is this okay?
not really,
Oh, sorry.
sorry.
Yeah, so this is a creative proposal. It's sensitive to the neighborhood. I was going to ask questions around whether there would be rowdy parties in that gathering spot. No, I think everyone's going to be in a very zen mood by the time, just like at the Kingfisher, where the hydrotherapy spa, I think is very similar. Councillor Beddoes is absolutely right. This is an ALC decision. It does in the OCP talk about agricultural policies, improve economic diversity. It definitely does bring fallow farmland back into productive use. And it does align with the Agricultural Land Commission Act. Again, it's a question of whether this non-farm use will be accepted, and that call will be made by the ALC and its commissioners.
Okay, Member Ritz and then Member Berry.
I would think the ALC though would want to know what our community thinks of this creative idea. And I think it's unfair not to give them our opinion. So I would vote that we should support this creative idea and put it forward. Ultimately not our decision, but they should know what our community wants.
Okay, I have a question for staff on that. Would that be a friendly amendment to add, including a recommendation, or is that we need to vote it down and start again?
Chair, that would be a amendment to the motion, so it should ideally be moved, seconded, debated, and voted upon to determine.
Okay, but what I'm asking here, it's a friendly amendment of sorts, so it doesn't need, we don't need to strike down the motion and then start over. We can actually treat it as an amendment, yes?
It is an amendment to the motion which can be done which can be discussed without having a final determination on the main motion, and then if the amendment passes, the motion would be debated as amended.
Thank you very much. So Member Ritz, if you wish, you can actually suggest an amendment to the motion, which you will then discuss.
Never done that before.
For time like the present.
Okay, authorize so the amendment is that the land use committee recommends, I guess we recommend to council, correct? Supporting this application and submitting it to the ALC for.
With recommendations or with
Or-
comments, I believe. Comments?
Supporting is the-
No, I believe that there's additional language and I'll just check with staff again, around comments, or is it with comments, or I know that there's some language around this.
Is the question whether or not Suit can send comments to the ALC with this?
I believe that one of the things that we can do is either send it forward with support and with either comments.
Yeah, that's
or with
correct, yeah.
recommendations. I'm not
Yeah.
really sure which word is used. What is it, comments?
Okay, I think comments is acceptable, yeah.
Okay, comments is acceptable. So support with, is that what you were, because that sounds like what you were describing. Is that what you're looking
If
for?
it's helpful, yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to clarify for you.
If comments
Okay.
are helpful, then for sure.
Okay, and Council Pearson will second this newly not quite put together and this amendment. So we'll see what it looks like. Shall we wait until we get the new? There we go. Council. Perfect. Okay, or it looks perfect to me. Member Ritz, what does that look like to you? Good. That was second. Okay, so would you like to motivate, or have you already done so?
I think I've already done so.
Okay, Councilor Pearson.
Yeah, I think that what's being asked is somewhat creative. I think that it's going to go to the ALC. It's going to go to the council first, and then there's another kick at it with council. But I think that if we're going to encourage people to use agricultural land, supporting agricultural uses on land is going to have to be a reality. You know, I mean, growing bamboo on that piece of property probably isn't going to be the best financial. I'm not going to weigh into that. But however, I do support people being creative, and this seems like a fairly benign use of the land in a fairly good area. Like, you know, it's overlooking the bluffs. It's got some natural appeal. The decision's not ours. The decision is with the ALC. And so I support people being creative with agricultural land. I think that it's going to be the way of the future, because if we want food security, we're going to have to let farmers be able to make money. That's simple as that. So anyway, it's my statement for the day. I'm not sure, like I wrote my motion, and I know I'm not proposing to change it. I just said that council support the agricultural land reserve non-farm use application. And this is kind of, doesn't say support here.
It does it in the, in support of the application is in the last few words.
Okay, it's, the commission for consideration with comments in support. Okay. I'd rather have it up front, that the Land Use Development Committee recommend that council support the agricultural land reserve non-farm use application in the front, as opposed to comments with support. I know it's semantics, but they're going to read that first line. I didn't really get it. Speak it.
Okay, I'm going to suggest that that's really
Okay.
a grammarian type of thing, but if anyone's willing to second it, we'll go into that as well. Anyone want a second? No one? Excellent.
Yeah, I would be fine with that, actually. I think having support right at the front matters.
Okay.
People just skim
Friendly.
sometimes.
Another friendly amendment.
Amen.
Yep.
All right.
Because we haven't voted on the other amendment yet, so.
So it's just basically changing word, right? That council
That council support.
support.
Yeah, recommend that council
Support it.
support the application with the Agricultural Land Commission. Okay, it sort of makes it complicated and weird, but all right. We good?
Thank you for your time, sir. Yeah. Committee.
Yep.
No.
Okay, so we're gonna vote on the front, yes.
Yes, so just we're trying to come up with the staff exact wording of what's just been discussed there. Because so the Land Use and Development Committee make recommendations to council, and you're recommending that council make recommendations to the ALC. So it's just getting a little recursive and just wanting to make sure that we're putting everything in the right place for you.
Yeah.
So where exactly is the intention to put the word support?
Recommend that council support.
So council
In your
support-
original motion, yeah. Okay, so if you strike out the word refuse to authorize, then just support.
Support, so that would be support the authorization of the agricultural land use reserve non-farm
You don't even need the
application.
word authorize, you just need to support the agricultural land reserve.
Well, no, because then the verb authorize is then wrongly conjugated in that sentence. So that would have to be, that's why I say it's getting quite convoluted with the, yeah.
It's just the grammar's getting weird. That's the problem.
Yeah,
Because
I can appreciate it.
the motion which is currently on the floor, or the amendment to the motion which is currently on the floor, is to add that the council authorize the ALR proceed to the application proceed to the ALC, and that the local government be expressed as being in support of this. And it's so if we're going to trying to reverse that in order to make it in support of, then I think that would be something like the Land Use and Development Committee recommend that council, or it's difficult to grammatically put it together with the support first before the authorization, because you don't have a thing to support until you've got the thing which has been authorized.
Point of order, Chair.
Mhm.
This should be a whole, this should be a whole new motion, not an amendment to the motion. It's straying a lot from the original motion. I mean, it's a separate motion. You know, one is black, one is white. So
okay.
should you not proceed with the first motion, which I made, and defeat it, and then make a second motion and pass it?
Okay, so
You know, if that's what the.
Councilor Meadows,
Yeah,
as it happens, I did ask that question of staff initially,
yeah, that's not what I understand it.
and staff was clear that in this particular case, this was considered an amendment to the motion, and we didn't need to strike down the motion before proceeding with an amended motion.
Yeah, well, I disagree strongly, and I would like our
Okay, so
corporate officer to rule on that, please.
I think Artie has, but could you please, Mr. Lewis?
Thank you, Chair. So the original motion was to authorize the agricultural land reserve non-farm use application to proceed for consideration and to not have any recommendation contained within it.
Right.
I do not believe that it was a complete contraindication to that amendment to that motion to insert an amendment with a recommendation contained within that authorization to the ALC. However, it certainly would be proper for for the committee to deal with those independently if you wish. My concern would be if you reject the authorization going forward. Actually, no, it would be valid to vote on the original motion, and then if it passes, then it would simply proceed to the ALC with no recommendation. If it failed, then a further motion could be made to authorize it being submitted with a particular recommendation, either in support or in opposition. It would be a little strange to submit it with opposition, but that would be logically possible. I think it is valid, the amendment which is on the table, to authorize the submission with comments in support of the application. But if that is confusing people, then it certainly could be dealt with in order first. It's just if the original one to authorize the submission with nothing passes, then there would be no subsequent opportunity to authorize the submission with comments in support or against.
Councillor Pearson.
Can I withdraw my second motion, the amendment to the amendment?
At this point, there is no, so the amendment to the amendment.
Yeah.
Motions under the rules that we follow through the chair are considered to be the property of the body in question. However, they may be withdrawn by the mover with the consent of the seconder. at any time up until the vote has been taken.
Okay.
So it is always possible to walk backwards carefully and slowly if the mover and seconder agree.
Okay, we have that approval from the mover and the
I move,
seconder. So that is gone.
I withdrew.
We are returned to the motion that we presently have in front of us, which is
With
Councillor Beddoes with a significant amendment. The motion you initially presented. At this point in time, we could simply vote on the existing motion. And I think I'm going to call the question. The one that's actually in front of us, that Land Use and Development Committee recommend that council authorize the Agricultural Land Reserve Non-Farm Use Application PLN 02558 to proceed to the Agricultural Land Commission for consideration with comments in support of the application.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the amendment. So we're going to vote on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment? Opposed? Okay, Councilor Beddoes is opposed. Now, on the amended motion. Any opposed? Let's do it the easy way. None opposed. The motion carries. Thank you very much. All right. Moving on. Yeah, well, it's what it is. Item 6.3. Development permit with variances PLN 01930 floodplain exemption. PLN 022032.
Sure.
Hold on.
I'm gonna have to remove myself from this vote.
Recuse yourself, please. Thank you. Is it back? I think we might be back in business. Okay.
Okay. Item 6.3 is both a development permit with variances and a floodplain regulation exemption request for the construction of a dwelling and a deck on the property located at 6507 Water Street. The subject property is approximately 1,431 square meters. It is located on the south side of Water Street along the Souk Harbor waterfront. Access to the property is provided via Souk Road and Charters Road, which connect to Water Street. The property is designated transitional residential in the official community plan, and it's zone CD4, the tent lot zone. It is located within the community growth area and the sewer service area. The site is currently vacant with an exception of an existing boathouse that straddles the subject property and the adjacent parcel. The property is characterized by disturbed shoreline, an existing seawall, and sloping terrain. The original legal plan for 6507 Water Street shows the property as part of the Thompson's Landing area. Established during the Leech River Gold Rush of 1864, Thompson's Landing served as a key waterfront access point. Many properties in the area later evolved to what are now known as Souk's tent lot properties and are zoned CD4 tent lot zone. Being relatively narrower than typical lots, these properties predate modern planning and environmental regulations and were created before current shoreline protection standards were in place. 6507 Water Street is a unique property. Property from most waterfront properties. The present natural boundary forms the legal property boundary. The present natural boundary is the point where the land naturally meets the water, commonly referred to as the shoreline or high water mark. The property at 6507 Water Street is different because of its unique historical origins. The property was created before modern shoreline regulations, resulting in the legal property boundary extending beyond the present natural boundary. Since that time, a seawall has been constructed which altered the location of the shoreline. A BC land surveyor has determined that the seawall now represents the present natural boundary. Although the legal property boundary extends beyond the seawall, all required environmental and coastal hazard setbacks continue to be measured from the present natural boundary at the seawall. As a result, the property is subject to the same shoreline protection requirements as other waterfront properties. Sorry for the transitions. This application proposes the construction of a duplex dwelling and a rear deck. Because of the site's location and landscape context, the proposal has been evaluated under 3 development permit areas. DPA Area 2, the General Environmental Protection, DP Area 3, Foreshore Area, and DP Area 5, Steep Slopes. An environmental assessment and sediment and erosion control plan identified potential risks related to shoreline disturbance, erosion, sediment, migration, and marine habitat. To address these risks, the reports recommend measures such as erosion and sediment controls, environmental monitoring, revegetation, and construction best management practices. Geotechnical investigations also confirm that the site can be safely developed, provided the recommended erosion protection and slope stability measures are implemented through the development permit conditions. Overall, staff are satisfied that the proposal is consistent with the intent of the applicable development permit area guidelines. There are two variances being requested with this application. The applicant is requesting a variance to section 3.21 of the zoning bylaw to reduce the required 15-meter setback from the present natural boundary. The proposed setbacks are 3.09 meters for the duplex and 1.2 meters for the rear deck. A geotechnical assessment confirms that the duplex and deck can safely be constructed at these setbacks, provided the engineer's recommendations are implemented. The assessment also includes measures to protect the marine environment during construction. Although the requested setback reduction is significant, staff consider it appropriate given the unique historical configuration of the tent lot properties and the site's physical constraints. With the recommended engineering environmental measures secured through the development permit, staff support the proposed variance. The applicant is also requesting a variance to the subdivision and development standards bylaw number 925, to waive the required frontage improvements along Water Street. Because this proposal is for a duplex, the bylaw requires frontage improvements to be constructed to the applicable local urban suburban road standards as part of the development. Staff do not support this variance. Water Street has sufficient width to accommodate the required improvements, and this development provides an opportunity to incrementally upgrade the public road network in accordance with the district's servicing standards. Waiving the requirement would delay the improvements and would be inconsistent with the intent of the subdivision and development standards bylaw, as well as the transportation master plan. In addition to the development permit with variances, the applicant is seeking an exemption from the floodplain regulation bylaw to permit the construction of a dwelling within 15 meters of the present natural boundary. The floodplain regulation bylaw identifies areas that might be subject to flooding and establishes regulations to reduce the risk to people and properties. Where a proposed dwelling does not meet these regulations, council may consider an exemption, provided it is supported by professional assessments demonstrating that the risks have been appropriately evaluated and mitigated. For development within 15 meters of the present natural boundary, the bylaw requires a qualified professional to determine an appropriate flood construction level using current flood hazard information. Flood construction level is the minimum elevation at which a building must be constructed to reduce the risk of flooding from coastal storm surge and future sea level rise. For 6507 Water Street, the project's qualified engineering professional recommends a minimum flood construction level of 6.2 meters geodetic elevation based on the CRD flood inundation mapping project. To ensure this recommendation is implemented, a section 219 restrictive covenant will be registered on the title requiring that the future dwellings be constructed at or above the recommended flood construction level. As the flood construction level will be secured within the aforementioned section 219 covenant, staff are satisfied that the proposal appropriately addresses the coastal flooding hazards while recognizing the unique physical characteristics and local and historical context of the subject property. Sorry, that is so small. I couldn't fit the recommendations on the screen.
Okay.
Staff support the proposed development permit and the requested variance to section 3.21 of the zoning bylaw to reduce the required setback from the present natural boundary for the proposed duplex and rear deck, subject to the implementation of the recommendations and construction requirements outlined in the supporting professional reports. Staff also support the requested floodplain regulation bylaw exemption, subject to the registration of a section 219 restrictive covenant to secure compliance with the recommended flood construction levels. However, staff do not support the requested exemption from the frontage improvement requirements of the SDS bylaw. Staff do, however, support council's consideration of a cash in lieu where appropriate in accordance with the bylaw and engineering referral comments. Accordingly, staff recommend the approval of the development permit, the zoning regulation variances, and the floodplain exemption bylaw, while recommending that the request to waive frontage improvements be denied. Staff's recommendation to the Land Use and Development Committee are presented. That concludes my presentation. And I believe the applicant and owner are actually with us today. If, committee has any questions for them.
Thank you. Does that mean that the applicant owner would like to make a presentation or to speak to the committee prior? Okay, please step forward. Don't forget to state your name.
Hello, I'm here representing with Wilf, but Herb Haldane, suit. Staff's done a lot of work on this. I appreciate it. It's been a long road. I've been helping Wilf with this property for a number of years now. And we've got sewer inclusion, a bunch of stuff. The only thing I'd like to keep in mind here is that the CD4 zone, he used to have 3 tent lots there at one time. Each tent lot's allowed a single duplex on a tent lot. Staff, before Lauren was involved with the district, staff had talked to Wilf about consolidating the 3 tent lots to 1 lot because what he was trying to apply, he was just trying to get anything to get a dwelling on there. And the 3 of them consolidated, made the property wider, and made it more feasible to try and get a dwelling unit on there. He still sits within the CD4 zone. The problem with the frontage improvements is it's triggered by the fact in that if you go from a single family to a duplex, it triggers frontage improvements. The thing here is the CD4 zone has always allowed duplexes. He's never changed zoning. He's never subdivided. He's never done anything here different than the property that he's owned for 25 years. So in this case, he was always planning on building a duplex of some kind on the property. At one time, he was legally allowed to do 3, but because of half of the property being out in the water, that was never going to be the case. So we did consolidate as staff had recommended, but we'd still like to build 1 duplex, which is all we're applying for here at this point. And the frontage improvements, according to the engineering staff, is around $107,000. So we already put in about $40,000 towards getting the sewer inclusion and hookups and the engineering and all that stuff done. He's got another $40,000 into site management with regards to a QEP, qualified environmental professional, archaeological stuff, people who came there, engineers for the seawall, for the ground conditions, and to talk about this sediment control and so on. The whole thing comes down to a piece of property he's owned for some 25 years, just wants to build a retirement home on it for himself and then have 1 unit that he can rent out as his income in retirement and so on. So we're just looking at something to get more reasonable. If he pays another $107,000, he'll be into this lot for almost close to $200,000. And there's still a whole bunch of more stuff that he's going to have to do to make this work down the water. So we were asking for the understanding that the duplex was always allowed, that therefore it shouldn't trigger the development bylaw where it says you have to go from single family to a duplex. You have to do all frontage improvements. I think he should be exempt from that because the zoning states you're allowed a duplex. So anyhow, the rest of it's been a good road. The staff's been very understanding and we've worked together for a number of years now just to try and get it to at least this stage. So I'm here to try and help Wilf out. He's lives in Cowichan right now, where everybody wants to move out this way and retire. So anyhow, I'd appreciate anything. And if you have any questions, I know what I know. I've been working on them for a number of years. So.
Thank you very much. Okay, so questions from the committee for staff. Councilor Beddoes.
Yeah, to staff, sorry, to the chair, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm a little confused here because if it's zoned for duplex, in my mind, it shouldn't trigger the frontage. Could staff explain that weird twist to it? Because if it's almost zoned for duplex and they're not violating the zoning, usually when we ask for frontage, it's an upgrade or something like that. So I would just like some clarification with that.
Yeah, through the chair, it's not necessarily an upgrading in zoning. There's certain uses that always trigger frontage. So anything other than a single family home or subdividing to create another lot would trigger frontage in the SDS bylaw, in bylaw number 925. So duplexes trigger it, townhouses would trigger it. Creating, I believe, more than 3 lots would trigger it.
Okay.
Okay.
So just to clarify for my own purposes.
Sure.
So aside and beyond from, you've changed the zoning and you've got a lift in the value of the property, now's the time to get those frontage improvements. We also have a number of other straight up permitted uses where if you go for a building permit, you could be asked for frontage improvements because you're adding additional density with a duplex or multi, or that type of thing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, sorry. I did not know this. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, just to clarify, it's not the zoning that triggers frontage. Just as Lauren stated, it's either building permit or subdivision. And there's certain triggers or thresholds there. So it's 3 lots or more for subdivision and building permit of a duplex or more.
Thank you very much for that clarification, that further clarification. You look like you're ready to go here. Councilor Pearson.
So just to clarify, so that every duplex permit, building permit now requires frontage improvements in Souk? In all zones? Really? Okay, well, I wasn't aware of that. Okay, so
hold on, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. That was my bad.
Yep.
I recognized you, but in fact, it's okay? All right, go.
okay.
I'm sorry.
So thank you for the presentation and a couple of questions that you mentioned transitional zone. What is transitional zone? Can you expand on that?
Yeah, through the chair. It's actually an OCP designation. Transitional residential is just outside of our town center designation. It's sort of a to densify either way. As you get closer to the town center, we'll get more dense, and that tapers off as you get towards the community residential. So it's just sort of a buffer in that area between those two areas.
Right. Okay, thank you. And then present, you use the word present natural boundary. So that means there was a different natural boundary sometime?
Through the chair, I'll try to get to that slide just so you can actually see.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct. We call it the present natural boundary because it can shift. So in this case, the seawall actually shifted where that natural boundary was. Another word for the natural boundary is the high water mark. So it's the location where the water it's considered the shoreline in a typical property. So here, the present natural boundary is named that because it can shift. So at the time of the survey being taken, the present natural boundary is where it's located.
And does the yellow line out in the water represent the actual boundary of this property?
In my slide?
Yes.
Not necessarily. In the survey drawing, I actually have a better picture of the survey. In my explanation here. That represents the natural boundary. Let's see if I can get to it.
Actual boundary, right?
Actual boundary.
Not natural, actual.
There we go. This one. This slide actually, if you look at the slide, it shows where the present natural boundary is. So that's where we would get the environmental setbacks, shoreline setbacks, and the property boundary is out quite a bit.
Okay, and as I've been on council for a number of years, these are very strange lots. If we can bring back to the actual survey is under the water out in the ocean, right? And it has been that way. And they're apparently, this is the only place in British Columbia where they exist. Is that correct?
Through the chair, I can't speak to that last part. I'm not sure, but they are very unique.
Yeah, we've been told that they are the only ones. So my question is, if the applicant wanted to build out over the water on pilings or something, is that possible?
I can take that. So it would be possible under, again, provincial leasehold and other permissions. So that does have a water use zone there as well. But regardless of the property boundary, my understanding is that it still would require those provincial approvals because it's beyond or into the basin and not above the high water mark, which is where our jurisdiction starts.
Right. Okay. Just because they are unusual. And my last question was, and the applicant made mention, so, and I was going to ask this question about the width of the lot. The width of this lot. So this lot appears to be a lot wider. Is that a result of the consolidation of the 3 former lots?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay. And each one of those lots that was there before was able to build a duplex? Any of these narrow lots could have had a duplex on it before?
Through the chair, they could have built a townhouse.
a townhouse.
It's a listed use as long as they meet the setbacks. They could always ask for variances, but that's a listed use.
Okay, and if they had built a townhouse on each one of those 3 lots, because I'm taking your word for it, that was 3, would road frontages have been required? Would that have triggered, if one person, or if they sold all 3, would each person that put an application in, would that trigger road frontage?
I think that would require further review of the SDS bylaw as written right now. And honestly, we're not the subject matter expert of that bylaw, but currently this application, what we're discussing today is a duplex on the existing lot. So that does trigger frontage.
Yeah, and again, because I think this lot, this piece of property, and I'm asking for historical kind of questions because it's been in front of council now for a dozen years, I'm pretty sure. So my question is, if somebody had come along and built 3 homes on those properties, if they met all the other conditions, it would not have triggered the road frontage, right?
It depends or through the chair, it depends which bylaw was in place at the time. If it was today's bylaw, I think that's something that I would want to confirm. And we could certainly get back to the committee with that question or be prepared to answer that question at council when this moves forward.
Yeah, I think you can see where I'm kind of going here is that there could have been 3 houses there instead of a duplex, right? That's my assumption.
Yeah. So I could speculate, but basically if there's 1 unit per parcel, then that's not a duplex. Potential for an exemption for frontage, that's correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Member Barry.
Yes, thank you. To Mr. Haldane, I'm just wondering, what is entailed in doing the frontage if you are requested to fix that up or get up to the.
Well, according to the engineering department, as per road cross section, and they did show one up there. So you have to pay for the boulevard, the sidewalk to center line of road. They're looking at cash in lieu because they're not looking at the work being done there. And the cash in lieu, according to the new, I guess, fee system they have for road frontage improvement of that kind, it worked out to about 107,000 in the last meeting that we had, which is just a substantial amount of money, given that if you do a 3-lot subdivision in Sooke or less, subdividing and building permit triggers it. But if you do a 3-lot subdivision in Sooke or less, there's no road frontage improvements, but there is if you build a duplex. So it just seems like the bylaw kind of takes you off in a couple of different directions. It needs to be more clarified for the average person, because the whole idea behind us creating the 3-lot or less with no road frontage improvements was to try and make it more reasonable for people and families to be able to do infill within their own small properties. And this just kind of got caught in the crosshairs, and there's an expectation for big money improvements here where there's not if you were going to divide into the same 3 lots that you used to have there. So I find it odd. But.
Further questions from the committee? Okay, well, I have just want to clarify. I heard something very interesting. So if the proponent was encouraged to actually aggregate 3 of the tent lots into one larger lot and then decide to put a duplex. But if those same 3 tent lots that each had 1 individual house on it, the road improvements would not have been required, or the frontage improvements would not have been required. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, but to be confirmed.
Okay, it's just interesting. It does. I don't actually believe that we should have exemptions from the frontage improvements in this particular case in certain ways, because of course that would open up all of Sooke to having similar exemptions. And that's putting a big hole in the bottom of our ship, so to speak. But at the same time, I can totally understand the concerns of the proponent in terms of having aggregated those properties, whereas previously without the aggregation could have put a similar number of units and not had the improvements. So additional cost and effort to actually aggregate, and then additional costs because you aggregated. So it's a bit tricky. I'm not sure what to do with that, but I'm just mentioning it out loud because for me that's the elephant in the room. Remember, it's.
I guess I see through the chair, I see so many variances that it seems like the design doesn't fit. And has there been thought of has it been designed for like a single family house that can be pushed back from the water, gone higher? Are we trying to, is something trying to be forced onto this land that simply doesn't fit? Is the feeling?
I would suggest at this point, what we have in front of us is a number of variants that have been gone through by staff and the proponents over a long period of time. I think that the proponent appreciates the work on all of the file, and everyone seems to be okay with where it sits. And given the historical nature of the property and how unique it is, it was going to be strange to begin with. What I think I'd like to do, and I will do, is we're going to go through all of the variances that have been essentially put forward by staff as recommended, and then we will come back to the one that is not recommended, and we'll take further questions and comments on that one, if that's okay, because I'd like to just see if we can get through this somewhat efficiently, and that way we can actually then focus on the one question as opposed to everything. Okay. So starting with that, the Land Use and Development Committee recommend that council authorize issuance of development permit PLN 01930 for 6507 Water Street, legally described as Lot 1, Block 1, Section 14, Suke District, Plan EPP 88370, to permit the construction of a duplex dwelling and deck in accordance with the terms and conditions of draft development permit PLN 01930, Attachment 1. Do I have a mover? Moved by Member Barry, seconded by Councillor Bateman. Any discussion? Any opposed? Opposed by Member Ritz. The motion carries. Thank you. That the Land Use and Development Committee recommend that council authorize issuance of development variance permit PLN 01930 Attachment 1 to vary section 3.21 of zoning bylaw number 600/2013 by reducing the required setback from the present natural boundary of the sea from 15.0 meters to 3.09 meters for the principal dwelling and the 1.2 meter for the deck. Do I have a mover? Moved by Member Barry, seconded by Councillor Bateman. Discussion? Please. Oh, sorry, motivation.
I'll just make a quick comment here. The amount of airtime that was taken up over this 15-meter setback during the OCP process, and just to see how site-specific conditions create this kind of variance. And I think it's important to note that.
Yep, a geotech report and the rest of it. Okay, yes.
I just want to make a comment. I appreciate Mr. Bateman's, Councillor Bateman's comment there, is that when it came to this 15-meter setback, when we're dealing with the OCP, maybe this is not the time, there was always going to be exceptions to the rule. And here's one right now that I think is exception to the rule. So I'm supporting that motion.
And while we're on it, I would also point out the 15-meter setback was historical and pre-existing to the OCP. It wasn't actually a change. So moving on from that. Further comment? Yes.
I will also say in the OCP, the province recommends now a 30-meter setback. And we originally put that forward, but there was a lot of pushback from the community. So we did go to 15. So this is just for.
Well, I think this would have made this particular development very challenging. So, sorry. With no further comments, I'll call the question. Any opposed? Opposed by Member Ritz. Thank you very much. Okay, that the Land Use and Development Committee recommend that council grant an exemption under Section 524 of the Local Government Act and Section 11B of the Floodplain Regulation Bylaw number 773/2020 to permit the proposed dwelling to be located 3.09 meters from the present natural boundary of the sea, subject to registration of a Section 219 covenant under the Land Title Act to secure compliance with the applicable flood construction level of 3.62 meters geodetic elevation. The recommendations of the RISAC Geotechnical Assessment dated May 6, 2026 as amended, and related flood hazard acknowledgement, release indemnity, and save harmless provisions to the satisfaction of the district. Mover? Moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Any opposed? Councillor Beddoes and Member Ritz opposed. Member Ritz opposed. Thank you. Okay. And that the floodplain setback exemption does not take effect until the required Section 219 covenant has been registered on title to the satisfaction of the district. Moved by Counselor Beddoes. Seconded by Member Barry. Comments? Questions? No. Call the question. Any opposed? Okay, there we go. I was expecting that and waiting for it. Member Ritz is opposed. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, if I count right, that leaves us with the motion on the, not on the floor, but as recommended by staff, that the Land Use and Development Committee recommend that council deny the requested variance to exempt the proposed development from the frontage improvement requirements under section 3.2 of subdivision and development standards bylaw number 925/2025. Okay, and that's what's actually on in front of us, and we have a mover, or what do we have here? Okay, there we go. I was surprised, but okay, we have member, it's moving that. Any seconders?
For conversation.
For discussion. All right. Care to motivate?
Looking at the map, I think Water Street one day will be a lovely walkable, you know, it connects, it's kind of a, hate to say it, the waterfront trail. It's not exactly waterfront, but in that section, it'll be the equivalent. So I would like to see, it improved, and yeah, I don't want to put it on taxpayers, so why not?
Thank you. Councilor Bateman.
Yeah, I agree. Water Street will be a significant one-day route along our waterfront, right next door to the Canes staircase. I am concerned about the $107,000 price tag for this, and I'm a little confused. So can I ask a question through you?
Yes.
At this point? So I did hear that there might be other structures built on this site. I assume.
I don't believe that was the case.
Pardon me?
I don't believe that was the case.
That's not the case. No future construction. Okay, so this 107,000 for the complete width of the.
I believe the one
of the
structure
parcel.
takes up most of the property.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no, okay. Further comments or questions on this? Member Barry?
I'm just wondering, with staff, if there's any compromise on that $107,000. Has there been any discussion about what else can be done, since it didn't really quite fit previously with the duplex versus the 3-lot section?
Yeah, through the chair. So there's a couple approaches here. What's being requested right now is a full exemption. Sometimes there can be discussion about varying the frontage standards as well to a lesser standard and a lesser cost. So that's also a potential. So yeah, those are the two options, and obviously constructing and cash in lieu, but that doesn't change the overall value. Of course, that value would have to be determined by an engineer. We would receive a cost estimate that would be approved by our director of operations. So we don't have that. I don't believe we have that figure in front of us. Not yet, but that's what we're hearing from the applicant, to be confirmed though later.
Sorry, did I see your hand, Councilor Beddoes?
Yeah, this is really a difficult one, because you know, my gut goes back to extracting what we can out of these developments for future of the suit. But in this case, it's a little different in that the applicant has shrunk 3 tent lots down for 1, which makes sense to me because they're really, really small. Even though you could put a dwelling on it, some sort on them, it would be, it just wouldn't make any sense to me. So I think the applicant has made a reasonable effort to bring something more reasonable to these odd little tent lots, and to bring 3 into 1, and then I don't think not penalize so much. But in order to stick them with a, you know, $102,000, again, it's a difficult one, but there's always exceptions to the rule. And I think with the fact that the consolidated 3 lots into 1 would really be the exception to the rule. Again, with Ms. Ritz, I certainly think we're here to, you know, extract some money for the greater good. But I have a lot of trouble with that figure of 102,000, I think it was, or 107. Okay. I'd be willing to set a considerable, you know, less amount, at least get something for the future. I see a hand up there, so I'll defer to staff in a minute, but right now I'm struggling a little bit with this, being that it consolidated 3 into 1. And if they left it as the 3, they could have put 3 little skinny houses on them. And I don't think that would be good for the waterfront or be good for the applicant. So I'll leave the staff as something they're going to say.
Thank you, Mr. Riley.
Through the chair, so just a word of caution here, when we do look at frontage improvements and cash in lieu, et cetera, it should be based on a design. It's not a negotiation of a dollar value.
Okay, I have a further question for staff at this point in time. With the 3 lots as they historically existed, with the setbacks that precluded development, or was it only possible to develop once you actually aggregated the properties?
Yeah, so I think this parcel certainly has challenges even as it exists today, amalgamated to develop upon, and that's why we're seeing a multitude of variances here. So, and I would have to look at the previous subdivision plan, but my understanding is that, yeah, you would need obviously more variances to be able to accommodate residential development on these properties. So I think staff's guidance before Ms. Matusi's time here at the district and my time was the right direction to amalgamate, to lessen the required number of variances and to provide a bit more flexibility on the property to develop. So I think that has been done in good faith by the owner. So sorry if that answers your question, but it would require a substantial amount of variances and a similar application that we're seeing today.
So just to clarify the reason for my question and where I'm going with this. If one assumes that at one point in time, the applicant could have put 3 separate structures together, almost like a townhouse type of situation, but they would have been separate houses on each one of these tent lots and then not paid for frontage improvements. That's a situation where they would have been recommended by staff to aggregate the properties and then would have been essentially putting the unfortunate situation of now that it's a duplex or, a triplex, now you have to pay for frontage improvements and you didn't before. But if instead we have a situation of 3 essentially worthless properties because the setbacks and the rules don't actually allow you to build on them at all, and that you have to actually get so many variances that it's challenging. I'm not sure if that's what it sounds like, but I'm not sure. It sounds like you would have needed essentially zero meter setbacks in order to actually, for example, put these on. And of course, that would affect the adjacent properties, which are not owned by the applicant. I'm thinking that's the kind of situation we're in, but I'd like you to confirm my understanding, please. Is that what we're looking at or not?
Yeah, I think it's pretty complex because in this case, the owner owned all individual properties adjacent to one another. In most cases, we have different owners.
Yes.
Right. So,
but even so, there are different owners on further adjacent properties.
Yep.
And so, for example, if you gave 0 meter setbacks on those 3 properties, so you could put, for example, what would look like a series of townhouses, that would still affect the adjacent property owners. You can't quite give them a 0 meter setback, at least on that one side, correct?
It is 0.
Oh, we do have 0 meter setbacks.
As long as you're butting up against another 10 lot, 0 setback.
So
they could have been, the whole idea behind the zoning originally was to try and do row housing anyway, because there were such skinny lots. So they agreed to do a 0 setback so people could just plunk them all against each other. But if you didn't own the lot on the other side, then there was a setback, 1.5 meters, I think.
Okay, well, you're out of order, but love it.
Yes.
Sorry, I have to assert my chairness here, okay? Just saying. Okay, so that's very interesting. So I'm gonna try and re-sum it for myself and hopefully that'll help. So we have these tent lots. They originally zoned in order for people to put the equivalent of townhouses with 0 meter setbacks. That's what the actual zoning, or if it was a CD zone, that's what it was intended for. Based on Ms. Matusi's work on this file, she's done a lot of work to recognize the historical uniqueness of these lots. And there's a reasonable chance that in fact, under Ms. Matusi's work, our proponent could have come forward and actually put down 0 meter townhouse type of things, put down 3 different houses that were essentially sort of joined and potentially avoided frontage improvements altogether. But was given advice from prior staff that the way to do this was to aggregate, which is still potentially good advice, but which has put him in an unfortunate situation. And I think that about sums it up, yes? Okay, just for the record. The chair recognizes Councillor Haldane.
Thank you. And the other thing to keep in mind too is the servicing bylaw has changed since this thing probably got going a number of years ago as well. And that's the thing. And there was a lull time in between. And I think that's where we run into this was amalgamated and done probably 7, 8 years ago, or actually before your time. So it'd be probably more like 9 or 10 years ago. And then of course, money runs low or whatever. So then we sat on it for a little while because we had to get sewer inclusion. So then we made that application again and came around with that. So that took a number of years later, and that did come up under your guys' current term because it was, I think you're in your first term last time around. And of course, all this stuff, again, with staff time and with paying for people to design and everything else, it just takes a long, long time. But keep in mind too, that I don't think the applicant is against paying something. I mean, we was just looking for something a little more fair, but I understand that the rules are based on the road cross section, and that's what makes it kind of tougher here. And in this case here, I mean, he has to borrow money to build the place. He'll have to borrow money to build that as well. So if we can, we're just trying to keep costs down so he can actually afford to do it. Otherwise, you'll see this application in front of you again in a couple more years, and somebody will be trying to do something that's more affordable or something they can do. But we're trying to get something out of the ground for him. I mean, Will's aging out here and he wants to get something done, but I'd appreciate anything. And if we have to pay it, we have to pay it. We understand that. We just thought we would at least make that attempt to try and see if we could alleviate some of the costs.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
At this point in time, Chair recognizes Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, so, but I heard from staff that that's sort of not what we can do. It's either yay or nay. It's the formula stresses what the amount is. And I just want to reconfirm that with staff, that I heard that right. Because I was inclined to do something different, but just to confirm that we don't really have a say there. It's the formulas there with the bylaws that we give you to work with.
Mr. Riley?
Is a nod. Yes. So
Do you elucidate?
Is there a way out here we can get less money and make everybody happy? So,
Yeah, through the chair. So the way out here, if there's still a desire to have frontage improvements to some degree, it would be a variance to those standards. So it could be, let's see, potential postponement or of the decision, and then having the applicant come back with a revised proposal for the variance.
Okay, let me, no, hang on a sec. Hold on. I have a further question. We've already approved everything except for this one piece. Would that still remain as is and approved, or are we looking at redoing the whole thing?
So this one would stand on its own, I believe.
This does stand.
Is
on
that
its own.
correct?
Thank you. I just wanted to confirm that. Councillor St. Pearson.
Only a recommendation to the chair to call the question because this is going to council anyways.
That is true, but having said that, I do appreciate the work that's being done here because as far as I can tell, most of council is in chambers right now, which means that ideally we won't spend too much time at that time. The chair recognizes Mayor Tate.
Well, this is thank you. Hi, everyone. This is a standing committee, so the intention is for the land use committee to receive the information. You have staff guidance here, you have the applicant here, is to ultimately make a decision and not to leave it up to council. That's why you exist.
That's why we're.
So I'm hoping that you can make a decision that council can then just receive for information and pass rather than open up the debate, because then we don't have the same fulsome dialogue that you are all having at this particular committee. And that is why it's important to respect the work of the committee rather than just say, send it to council and let them decide. Otherwise, why bother having a committee?
Furthermore, I think Councillor Haldane would find it difficult to ask his questions and answer them at the same time, which.
And further to that, he would have to recuse himself. We could end up with 6 members present, a tie vote, and then send it back to the committee and then back and forth again. And ultimately, then it'll never be resolved. So I'm hoping that you can actually make a decision that council can endorse.
Ritz?
Yeah, I would just like to say, with respect, we're here to make the best decisions for the community on land use. We're not here to discuss money, similar to the last eco spa that was brought forward. I just heard if we have to pay it, we'll pay it. And so I'd say, yay, great. Thank you. Our community would appreciate that. We'd love roads and sidewalks and things like that. And also the variances, like, I still see this property as something's being squished on it that doesn't fit. I understand I was outvoted and I respect that, but the community has given so many variants on this. Stick with the road. Like, that's one thing we could get. And so that's my say on that.
Okay, so at this point, should I just call the question?
Probably.
Okay. All in favor of the motion as it stands?
Okay, can you read the motion?
Yeah, actually, that's a good plan. Okay, so that the Land Use Committee recommend that council deny the requested variance to exempt the proposed development for the frontage improvement requirements under section 3.2 of subdivision development standard number standards bylaw number 925/2025. Okay. Before we call the question, I will actually say that I would have appreciated looking at a variance to the road cross section. Because I think it's appropriate on that particular road, given the nature, historical nature and the size of the lots and so on and so forth. I don't know that the existing cross section that we presently have is actually even appropriate for that particular site. I will go to Mr. Lois, who is expert on such matters. Would that be an amendment? It doesn't sound very friendly, but I would love to know. If I was to add in subject to a variance in the road cross section.
So this would be that the Land Use Development Committee recommend the council deny the requested variance from frontage requirements, but then with an amendment to the road cross sections.
Yes. But I don't know, deny the variance, but revisit the road cross section with the applicant. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as staff, we think this is getting a little beyond something that we can immediately resolve. And I think we would suggest that you instruct staff to bring, that would be a new motion to instruct staff to bring forward information on what the revised cross sections could look like to negotiate with the landowner.
Okay, then I will explain. I think that particular area has very small lots. It's really close to the water. It's very different. I think the road cross section is sort of an overlay that covers a lot of areas. I think that your comment about having appropriate access is well taken, and I think should be considered. But the full cost of the road cross section as it stands doesn't necessarily make as much sense as it could, and that's my estimation. I would love to see a staff report that actually, looked more carefully at that. Yes.
So it's cash in lieu.
Yes.
But that cash in lieu can only be used for that cross section?
Correct.
Is that how
Correct.
it works?
That's how it works. So if it was decided that something less expensive, more appropriate to the neighborhood was appropriate, there's small problems that could probably be resolved, I'm sure, but I'm just suggesting that here, for the benefit of the applicant and possibly the neighborhood, and while actually doing what needs to be done. Yes.
I just want to add something. I've spent a lot of time in this area because it is an area that is used by Sooke Elementary School. It's not an area, like even when I go back to when the district put in the stairs at Canes Park and there was a big pushback, like, why are we building stairs to nowhere and blah, blah, blah. It's stairs for the students of the school, really. There's very few places to park here and access it. So it's not a big draw like, say, Whiff and Spit that people would come from other areas to enjoy. It is particularly, the road is very narrow. It's a bit kind of a maze even to get to Canes Park to find it. It has a lot of unique character there. So I appreciate the need to have frontage and all that. But at the same time, this is a very unique area. It's very narrow. The students walk safely down the middle of the road because there is not a lot of through traffic. Is one that they enjoy because it does create an outdoor learning opportunity for the students to go down to the park and back. And Canes Park is really just a big rock with stairs to the water. So when we picture parks, sometimes we picture areas to throw a ball, to play frisbee, you cannot do any of that. And maybe it's because Mr. Keynes at the time, and I've spoken with people that cared for him, realized I cannot build on this park. I'm going to donate it to the municipality. And that's why that legacy remains, and we've named it so. So it's just for context, it's not an area that I would recommend encouraging people to travel to and explore. Your best bet is to park at Suk Elementary when school's not in, and to walk down there and to enjoy it in that way, because it is a narrow area with not a lot of through traffic. Like, that is the context of it, as opposed to a place like Whiff and Spit, which can be a draw with parking and access. It's level, accessible, all of that. Even when you come down the stairs, it's not an easy walk to get onto the beach. You're going on slippery stones depending on the tide, if the tide is even out.
Thank you. So to what I was saying, I think it's a unique sort of little area. Building up the cross section to suburban standards feels a little dicey. Go.
So then is there a way to take some money in lieu, whatever that may be,
Okay, so
as much as possible?
I can answer that.
Okay, and put it
at least-
towards road improvements
without actually dickering around how much, without just making it up as we go along. What we have is certain road cross section, the cost per cross section, so that people can actually have a formula to apply, know exactly what to pay. In this particular case, staff would have to come up with a modified road cross section for that neighborhood that would potentially create some cost savings for the applicant. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's what I'm suggesting at this point in time. And I'm curious as to how what staff's response to this might be in terms of whether or not it's doable and how we can manage it at this point.
So the question is if this would be doable in terms.
Can we come up with a modified cross section that would be appropriate for this particular area?
Yeah, that's something that would need to be determined by our engineering department. Yep. And I think one implication here as well is, given that I believe there's no frontage on this entire roadway currently, it may also be setting a precedent. So those types of considerations would need to be determined by our staff as well, but it's something for our engineering department to comment on.
Okay, so at this point, question for Mr. Lois, is this an appropriate juncture to maybe table this motion in order to get more information along these lines?
Chair, I think at this point, if the committee feel that they have enough information to vote on the question before them, the question currently on the floor being denying the requested variance from frontage requirements, then it is entirely proper to vote on that motion at this point in time. If you do not feel that you have enough information to vote on that, then it would be best to resolve instead to instruct staff to bring forward different proposed cross sections, having worked with the applicant, and then that would give the engineering department and the applicant the time to bring you back the information that you're looking for.
Thank you very much. Okay, so yes, Member Ritz, and then Councilor.
So there's, I guess one again, there's no generic bucket for no. Okay,
We have to create one.
okay.
Councilor Meadows.
I was just sort of interested to have I don't know whether it's the appropriate time, the applicant to comment, because what this is going to do is delay again. And that may be detrimental to the applicant. He might just want a clean answer, yes or no. So could we get some indication?
I know the applicant's preference, please.
So
if you know.
To put a little bit of clarity to it, I've done a few of these subdivisions or lots and stuff before, and when cash and lieu is an option to road cross sections, and I've done it on Maple Avenue twice. The engineering department they have their own formula, but they can set the formula up. I mean, the last one we used was the Charters Road amount that it costs to build per meter on Charters Road. But Mr. Carter, before he left on Maple Avenue, we did one there. He did allow for a different road cross section, and that was I don't know if it's under some delegated authority that had happened, but he made it reasonable for the person to be able to do what they needed to do there. It was around $35,000 rather than at that time it was going to be 69, and he got it about cut in half. But I don't know what the parameters are or how we got there when we did it, but he set that up. we signed a piece of paper and we paid the money. And that's the other thing, this road frontage improvement money has to come up front. So there's no, you don't have, or you do a bond, but a bond's 110%. So
Okay,
you,
so that doesn't actually answer Councilor Beto's question.
Oh,
And the
sorry.
question was really, what would the applicant's preference be? A delay in order to do this work with the engineering department and find out, what's possible? Or to move ahead with the full cost of 107, I believe is what you're asking, yes?
Yeah, that is exactly what, pay it or delay it. Would you rather pay it or do you have to delay otherwise? Paying 107? I know.
Or delay
But
and
it's
see about
gonna
getting
be a
it.
few more weeks, maybe.
2.5 years now, I'm not, 100 grand over it.
Yeah. So, well, this question of
Where is more?
otherwise you have to pay.
It's not even worth doing. So I have to be paying 107.
Well, no, well, they'll come up with the exact amount. That was the guesstimate he had at the last.
I don't really want, sorry guys, I really don't want to delay it, anyway, Dan, before I get this thing built.
Okay, all right. So we have do not delay.
yeah.
Okay, so with that information in mind, thank you, Councilor Beto. Excellent question. Let me get that in front of me again because I think I'm gonna have to read it again. That the Land Use and Development Committee recommend the council deny the request of variance to exempt the proposed development from the frontage improvement requirements under section 3.2 of subdivision development standards bylaw number 925/2025. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? The motion passes. I wouldn't have passed it otherwise, but there you go. Okay. Not what I expected. That's okay. You're most welcome. Moving forward. Bylaws. 7.1 zoning amendment bylaw number 946, 600-119, 2026, agritourism accommodation and alcohol production facility. Is it Mr. McStravick?
Indeed.
Being an expert there, eh?
Right. Charlotte?
Yep. I would have been happy to see a new cross-section for that area. They don't want the delay. They don't want the delay. You know, they might have saved 40 grand or whatever, but I don't know. Yeah, and thanks for asking because hey, it switched my idea out.
I didn't want to go too far.
Hit it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to present now on the zoning amendment bylaw number 946, 2026. With respect to agritourism accommodation, and alcohol production facilities. So council directed staff to review opportunity. Oh, and I apologize. These slides are very text heavy, which is not my preference, but it's just that kind of topic. To review opportunities to better align the district zoning with provincial agricultural legislation and accommodation uses on agricultural lands. The draft bylaw before you proposes 3 new accessory uses to the agricultural zoning. That would be agritourism accommodation, and alcohol production facilities. The goal is to clarify how farm-based tourism, limited farm-based accommodation, and alcohol production facilities are regulated in Sooke. So the zoning bylaw currently permits agriculture in rural zones, but it does not currently define agritourism or agritourism accommodation. And so that should say rural and agricultural zones. Farm-based accommodation may therefore be interpreted through residential accommodation uses, but such as bed and breakfast or vacation accommodation units or short-term rentals, as we call them. Those uses were not designed specifically for agriculture or ALR context, however, leading to confusion. The ALR use regulation addresses these all separately: agritourism activities, agritourism accommodation, alcohol production facilities, and farm retail sales. Referral comments that we received back from the ministry and from the ALC themselves emphasize that these uses should not be combined into a broad agritourism definition, but rather they should be treated separately. And so that is what this bylaw sets out to do. We propose this following approach. The draft bylaw will introduce agritourism and agritourism accommodation as accessory uses to agriculture on eligible agricultural properties. alcohol production facility would also be introduced as an accessory use to agriculture on eligible parcels within the ALR. So this approach keeps agriculture as the principal use on affected properties. It requires that farmers maintain farm class status to access these accessory uses. It distinguishes agricultural accommodation from residential short-term rentals, and it avoids conflating separate ALR uses, which are treated differently by the Agricultural Land Commission.
Just a quick clarification.
Yeah.
How does that avoid conflating separate ALR uses?
Thank you. When we initially set out to do this project, we were looking at treating alcohol production facilities as a form of agritourism, but we're treating that as a separate use because that's how the ALC does that. That's the short version. Thank you for the question. So the draft bylaw defines agritourism narrowly and broadly in keeping with how the Agricultural Land Commission defines it. So these specific items listed here are listed as agritourism uses. The actual text of it can be found appended to the report. But the point is that it's a narrow definition, a specific definition, which lines up with the ALC's definition. Agritourism accommodation. The draft bylaw would allow limited tourist accommodation only where it is accessory to agriculture and associated with agritourism on the same parcel. So the key limits include that you have to maintain a farm class status. There's a maximum of 10 sleeping units in an agritourism accommodation operation. Accommodation must be seasonal or short term, and the developed area must be less than 5% of the parcel. Sleeping units cannot function as individual dwelling units. Sorry. And with respect to alcohol production facilities, as I mentioned, they are regulated separately from agritourism under the ALR regulation. And so we propose to do the same in Souk. We're going to, propose to add that as a distinct defined use within the zoning bylaw. And again, it'll improve clarity in the zoning bylaw, avoid conflating them with other tourism uses to avoid confusion for operators, and recognize that it's actually not something which we're entitled to prohibit from ALR properties. So you're being presented with a draft bylaw to consider, and the intention here is to close an identified zoning gap and to align our regulations more closely with the Agricultural Land Commission to hopefully encourage some more of these uses on farmland. Yes, I won't read the whole slide.
Got it.
And this is a map I'd like to just explain briefly. It was included in your report as well. I'm not sure which copy will have greater legibility for you, but we worked with our GIS mapping department to analyze the number of properties that would be affected by this proposal. And I'll just take a second to try to explain it. You'll see down at the bottom, there's a table which says parcel count by land description. So in the RU1, RU2, and RU3 zones combined, we have 505 parcels that are zoned for agriculture. Within that number, there are 39 of them that have farm class status, meaning they're under active agricultural production. Of that, there are 30 that are within the ALR, and there are therefore 9 agriculturally zoned properties with farm status that are not within the ALR. And so overall, staff are satisfied that the affected properties, both in the ALR and outside the ALR, will find that these proposed zoning changes will for them hopefully clarify and somewhat liberalize their permitted uses to, again, overall just align it better with what the ALC permits. Because up until now, we had not defined agritourism, accommodation, alcohol production facilities as permitted uses in these zones. And so if this bylaw is adopted going forward, they will be listed as permitted uses.
Excuse me.
Yes.
That's actually fascinating. And so I have to clarify, make sure I got this right. We have zones that are not within the ALR or areas RU3, I think you were saying, that are now going to be permitted these additional uses.
Some, but not all of them. If I recall correctly, I'll just double check my bylaw. The alcohol production facilities, I think, have to be within the ALR.
Okay.
If it's important, I can double check now.
I was curious about that.
But yeah, one moment, please.
And confusion could cause issues. Thank you.
Shall I double check it right now? Okay,
Can
I
answer
can
later,
pull that
but
correct.
I have a question about that would
Okay.
love some
But
clarification.
let's just wrap up this presentation then. I think there's only 1 or 2 slides left. So the next step, of course, is we'll receive a recommendation today on how to proceed. That will be taken to council. And before bylaw is adopted, we have to have a public hearing. And so statutory notice will be given. Following a public hearing, council would give consideration of 3rd reading and adoption. And here's a recommended motion for the committee. And with that, I'll turn it over for questions.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your work. This is amazing. Okay, questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none. Member Barry.
To the chair, thank you, Cal. So the 505 parcels that were identified, now were they are not all in the ALR? How were they identified?
Yes, through the chair, that's correct. 505 parcels are contained within the RU1, RU2, and RU3 zones, which are our agricultural zones. This map doesn't give the number about whether or not all of those are in the ALR, but I don't believe that every single one of them is in the ALR. Actually, sorry, that's the 9 at the bottom. But those ones are the ones that have farm class status also. So the number could be a bit greater than that, right?
Further question, Mr. Barry?
I think. Yeah,
Okay.
farm class parcels.
Seeing no one at this point, I'm going to ask a question of my own. You pointed out that not necessarily all of the RU1, RU2, RU3 would actually have the ability to do the alcohol production specifically. Is there any reason why not? And the reason I ask is because if you have similar properties engaging in agricultural production to begin with, but given that they would have to have farm status, they're already engaging in agriculture. I don't see the reasons why we wouldn't actually provide them with the same abilities in terms of making profits and actually making a profitable farm. So,
Yeah,
thoughts?
Yes. So to be honest, when we conducted the review of our bylaw and drafted these proposed amendments, I think we were focused. So there's a bit of a narrow focus on what these permissions permitted. So the ALC has a much more in-depth regulatory framework for alcohol production facilities on ALR land, something that we did not incorporate into our bylaw. So the ALR use regulation is doing a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of the regulatory framework for alcohol production facilities. But what we have done strategically is we have permitted alcohol production facility in these zones only in the ALR. So the ALR and our bylaw can do that work together, can align exactly. But the term itself is not ALR only. It's just alcohol production facility. And in the future, we're thinking in 2027, we do look at the zoning bylaw update. We could use alcohol production facility potentially more broadly to industrial zones, to commercial zones, et cetera, like where we have brewery or microbrewery uses. Those would fall under alcohol production facility instead. So instead of scope creep with these amendments, we decided to keep a narrow focus for now. And then also set the stage for potentially broadening those permissions with the future zoning bylaw update.
Okay, so it sounds like the language is already available within the ALC regulations to actually manage this particular activity.
Correct.
But we don't have that at this moment in our own bylaws. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so the decision was been made to move this forward fairly quickly and wait for a future revisiting of those bylaws to potentially include some of that language at that point in time and increase the scope of some of the uses on other properties that are RU 1, 2, or 3. Is that correct?
Essentially, yes, as well as industrial or commercial properties.
Okay, so we're moving forward, yay. And we're not necessarily going the whole shebang because at this point in time, we don't actually have the language or that verbiage in our own bylaws. And this would be something entirely new that would have to be examined more carefully.
That's correct. And when we did receive direction from council, actually alcohol production facility was sort of the third on the pedestal, so to speak, in terms of what our focus was for these amendments. We were looking at agritourism and agritourism accommodation. Basically, agritourism accommodation was the main focus because we were trying to modernize our bylaw with short-term rentals, as well as bed and breakfast and agritourism accommodation. That scope creep occurred there a little bit to consider agritourism as well. These are
Yeah.
uses that may not be prohibited on ALR lands, but then also due to the feedback we received with alcohol production facility, created a separate use there strategically that we could potentially broaden in the future.
No, I absolutely appreciate the scope creep in terms of allowing more economic activity on various pieces of agricultural land. Any further questions from committee? And then I'll come back to you, Mr. Mr. Yes? Mr. Berry.
Sorry, just more of a comment that I think is a really positive work that you're doing there and thorough, and I'm all for it. I think there's a lot of land that's been sitting around, small parcel land that's not being used for anything. It's just sitting stagnant. So we can encourage them to get used for both business and for agriculture. I think it's very positive. So appreciate that.
I would echo Mr. Berry's comments. Mr. McStraffic?
Thank you, Chair. It's a minor point, but just to build on what Jayden was saying, the fact of not allowing alcohol production facilities on agricultural properties outside of the ALR, it actually might also represent one of the rare cases where a property owner may wish to apply for inclusion into the ALR because they would then get the benefit of that extra protection for that farm use. And
see,
so
that
it does happen from time to time because of that umbrella of protection it provides for farm uses.
That's a good thing to know. Thank you. Okay, so I think there are no further questions. I'm going to read this out and look for a second to move the motion. The Land Use and Development Committee recommend that council give first, second reading to zoning amendment bylaw number 946-600-119-2026 to amend zoning bylaw number 600 by introducing agritourism accommodation and alcohol production facility as accessory uses agricultural parcels to agriculture on eligible. I'm looking for a mover. Councillor Beddoes and Councillor Bateman, seconded. Any opposed? Sorry, any further comments?
Yeah, I'll just note, it's been 10 months since council directed you to begin this process. And I just want to thank you for the way it unfolded. I was particularly interested in those referral letters from the Ministry of Agriculture and Food and the ALC and how district staff have been working with that level of government to ensure that this is the best possible amendment. So thank you.
Truly excellent. Anything further? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. And that the Land Use and Development Committee recommend the council direct staff to schedule a public hearing for zoning amendment bylaw number 946-600-119-2026. Moved by Member Berry, seconded by Councillor Bateman. Further comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Any opposed? Got to watch that. I'm going to switch it up every time to say no shit. Okay, none opposed. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, my screen keeps going dead. Sorry, guys. All right, I think we're on to 7.2 zoning bylaw amendment number 950 RU2 housekeeping amendment.
Yeah, thank you. So this item introduces zoning amendment bylaw number 950, which proposes a housekeeping amendment to the RU2 zone in zoning bylaw number 600. This housekeeping amendment is required to address an issue that resulted from the SMOO amendments that were adopted in February 2025. As part of those amendments, the RU2 zone unintentionally permitted a secondary suite and a detached small suite per single family dwelling as opposed to one or the other. Notably, the RU2 zone is unique in that it permits multiple single family dwellings once a parcel is over 0.4 hectares and permitting up to 8 single family dwellings, for example, at its max. This amendment is intended to restore the previous approach for small scale multi-unit housing eligible RU2 parcels, as well as broaden the permitted building typology for SMOO eligible parcels should they exist in the future. So the RU2 zone uses a graduated density table, as I noted previously, that identifies a maximum number of principal residential buildings or structures based on parcel size. So the issue is that the current suite permissions are listed separately below that table. Secondary suites are listed as 1 per single family dwelling, and detached small suites are also listed as 1 per single family dwelling. This change was has unintended density permissions on larger lots. For example, a 4-hectare parcel permitting 4 single-family dwellings could be interpreted as allowing an additional 4 secondary suites and 4 detached suites for a total of 12 dwelling units on a parcel. So this slide shows the red line amendments from the smooth zoning amendments adopted in February 2025. The key issue is that the previous restriction, again, allowed only one secondary suite or small suite. You'll see that in the right column under accessory uses, which I've included a note. The proposed amendments corrects that to bring it back to the intended either or. Here is the zone's graduated density table. For clarity, no changes were made to the table as part of the SMU amendments, and none are proposed now. The issue is below the table, where suite permissions were added through the SMU amendments, again, without the either or limitation that existed previously. So this slide summarizes the intended suite framework. So for non-SMU RU2 parcels, the amendment restores the previous approach. However, for SMU eligible RU2 parcels, suites may be permitted per principal dwelling unit, provided that the total number of dwelling units does not exceed 4. This would affect parcels in the first size category only, so those that are 0.4 hectares or less. This keeps the SMU permissions in place while ensuring that suites do not create additional density beyond the 4-unit cap. The amendment also clarifies how SMU permissions apply in the RU2 zone. So where the required SMU criteria are met, which is listed below here, the RU2 zone may permit up to the 4 dwelling units. The proposed amendment retains these permissions, but clarifies how they fit within that zone. Another part of this amendment is the addition of the permitted use small scale multi-unit residential dwelling, or if you'll humor me, SMERD, as a permitted principal use for SMU eligible parcels. This effectively would allow, as defined, a duplex, triplex, or fourplex. So it also permits a maximum of 1 principal residential building or structure, which aligns with the approach used in all other residential zones in the bylaw currently. For additional context, this slide shows the RU2 parcel overview map included with the report as attachment 4. There are 337 RU2 zone parcels in total. These parcels are distributed across several rural areas of the district, including the north of Phillips Road and north of Sun River, as well as west and far east rural areas. The parcels, again, are categorized by parcel size to align with that RU2 graduated density table. And of those 337 RU2 parcels, the largest category is between 0.8 and 3.99 hectares with 135 parcels. This would permit up to 3 single-family dwellings with suites per parcel. Staff also confirmed the number of RU2 parcels that currently appear to meet the SMU criteria is 0. So only 3 parcels would have a higher likelihood of future eligibility where services exist in front of their parcel. They're within the community growth boundary. They're outside of the ALR. There's also an additional 7 RU2 parcels west of the bridge and also within the community growth area, but with greater servicing constraints. Therefore, the SMU-related amendments of this bylaw are proposed in a proactive sense in case those parcels decide to connect to services in the future. Given the housekeeping nature of the amendment, no external referrals were engaged. A public hearing is also not required due to the consistency with the OCP and due to its residential nature in accordance with the Local Government Act. However, we would have to send out a statutory notice in advance of first reading of the bylaw before it gets to council. So again, in conclusion, the proposed amendment is a housekeeping correction to the RU2 zone. It addresses the unintended changes from the SMU amendments in 2025. The amendment restores the intended accessory suite structure for non-SMU RU2 parcels. It also clarifies that eligible SMU parcels may have up to 4 dwelling units and that any secondary suites or detached suites count towards that 4-unit maximum. And I have the recommended motion on the board here and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to put the motion out first and then we'll see about questions. That's the Land Use and Development Committee recommend that council give first, second, and third reading to zoning amendment bylaw number 950, 2026 to amend schedule 102 rural RU2 of zoning bylaw number 600 to clarify residential density permissions and accessory suite regulations in the RU2 zone. I believe Councilor Beddoes has moved it. A seconder. Ritz. Okay, and we'll move into questions. Any questions? Ritz.
And again, maybe more of a housekeeping, but on page 200 of the agenda, section 102.5, I just want to make sure, I think that's the corrected version. And subsections B and C, they still have the original wording. I wasn't sure if the wording was supposed to be changed to secondary or attached, one per single family.
Okay, what question to staff there?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Sorry.
On page 200 of the agenda, and I believe that we're now into the amended, but, and it's section 102.5, and I just wanted to make sure there wasn't an error there if it's correctly drafted, because it seems like subsection B and C are supposed to be replaced with secondary suite or detached suite, one per single family dwelling.
Yeah, so sorry, you're speaking to page 200 of the agenda.
200.
Yeah, so that is the attachment of the red line edits for the SMU amendments that occurred in February 2025. So I was just noting here where the unintended amendments occurred.
Okay.
So that is being
That is
fixed.
okay,
Yeah,
good.
and it's
Yeah.
noted in the bylaw, actually, that follows,
Okay, sounds good.
or that precedes, sorry.
Further questions? Any motivation from our mover and seconder? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you very much. We're on to new business. Any new business? Seeing none, moving on to adjournment. Anyone want to? Okay, moved by Member Ritz, seconded by Councilor Bateman. Any opposed? Looks like we're adjourned, folks. Thank you so much. Well done. There was a lot to go through. That was a big one. Councilors, I will note